Thanks for staying so late. I apologize for the title of this presentation. When I was working in advertising agencies, we were basically told, "Thou shalt not pun. If you bring me a pun, you will not come back tomorrow." When I went in-house, we embrace puns so much that it's actually ridiculous. Like half of the writing I do now are just bad puns. So forgive me, hopefully it'll get better from here. When I spoke to Vicky originally about doing this talk, and she said, "Oh, do you want to come speak at Cabana?" And I said, "Sure, what would you like me to talk about?" And she said, "Oh, something about the tone of voice." And I said, "Oh, maybe what next for tone of voice for us, because we've had quite a well-known, quite a well-established tone of voice, but you know, now, these days, every bag of lettuce wants to be your best friend. Every pack of biscuits is trying to feel you up. That's an image you can keep. But it is tough because a lot of people are doing the same kind of thing. Everyone's trying to be friendly, over-friendly, creepily friendly. So how do we kind of maintain that authentic, friendly, hopefully irreverent tone that we've had? And do we keep it? Is it something that people still want? So that's what I'm going to talk about today, but I'm also not promising any answers. So I don't know if you know the history. Let me start at the beginning, because I said we have quite a well-established tone of voice, but not everyone knows exactly how we started. So the history of Innocent is that there were three guys, they'd just come out of university and they were working in normal jobs where they had to wear a suit and walk around and be very serious, and they didn't really enjoy those kinds of jobs, but they also were going out a lot, partying a lot, getting really drunk, getting really hungover, and then realizing on sort of like a Tuesday afternoon they hadn't eaten a vegetable in like 3 weeks. So they were like, we need to get something good and healthy into our bodies, so they started making their own smoothies, started doing their own juices, and then they thought, oh, let's take it to a festival, let's see how it goes, maybe people will buy our smoothies and juices. And this was 1998, so smoothies were not that big a thing yet. They were quite new, quite esoteric. And they took their wares to a festival. They set up a little stand, and they had 2 bins outside the stand, one saying yes and one saying no. And they said, if you like what we're doing and you think we should quit our jobs, please put your empty containers into the yes bin. If you don't like what we're doing and you think we should stick with our jobs, please put your empty containers in the no bin. And at the end of the day, obviously the yes bin was overflowing and the no bin wasn't. I'm sure it had some in, but it was obviously pointing towards yes. So they quit their jobs, they started Innocent. And when they did that, they had very little money. They had basically no money to do any advertising. So they had to be smart with packaging. They had to start to speak to people in a way that they hadn't been spoken to before. And also, they were just a bunch of guys who were kind of sick of being spoken to in that kind of distant way that advertising can sometimes speak to you, where it's very formal and very dry. And they wanted to speak to people, they wanted to speak to their drinkers the way that they spoke to each other when they sent each other a bit of a rude email or ripped each other off or took the piss out of each other. So they wanted to be able to do that too. So the original name for Innocent, just to show that things don't always go smoothly with smoothies, this was it, Fast Tractor. It's fucking horrible, isn't it? It's so bad. So they went into like proper marketing shutdown, and they were like, what are we going to do? That's no good, it's no good. So they did what everyone would do and made a spreadsheet. Amazing. And they came up with loads of different names. Naked, obviously can't use that one. That's kind of taken. But yeah, they put like a little bit of a rating system next to them. Some of them were really awful, like direct smoothies. What? Ugh. Hula smoothies. Ugh. But yeah, so the worry was that Innocent, it was good, but potentially a bit aromatherapy. Not sure what that means, but they didn't listen to that, and they went with Innocent, and it's worked out really well. Obviously, being very clear about the fact that it was clean and pure and wonderful. But they had to use the packaging, so they did things like this. Underneath the bottle, stop looking at my bottom, which is on everything we do now. So if you open up a carton of coconut water, because obviously coconut water is in Tetra Pak, you can't see it, but I promise you it's there. Buy some coconut water from Innocent and open up underneath, and you'll see there's a little stop looking at my bottom, because it's kind of like our own little thing that we keep all the time. So they did things like that. They went to bottling factories, went to bottling plants, and said, can we do things where we haven't done before, and can we stamp things on the undersides of our bottles? Just because no one else is doing it doesn't mean it can't be done. And that's kind of a theme with Innocent, is just because no one else is doing it doesn't mean it can't be done. So then, yeah, packaging. So they started thinking, okay, well, what can we put on our packaging that is kind of like an advert for the next thing that people buy? And I'll just read this to you quickly because it's very early. This is very early packaging. And it's a little cheekier than we probably would do right now, but it's always good to go back and see these things and remind ourselves that we can be a bit cheeky. So this one says, my mum started buying our smoothies, and that's after 5 whole years, the skinflint. This means that I've got to behave and not say anything too rude or controversial. So, Mum, they really are good for you. They're made from 100% pure fresh fruit. They contain loads of vitamin C, a day and a half's worth. They're as fat-free as an apple or banana, and that's because they're just fruit. Is that good enough for you, Mum? Right, I'm off to smash some windows and have a fag. So, yeah, they wanted to use that kind of tone of voice that they would say in an email to each other, oh, my bloody mother, oh, this is what I want to say to her, and that's what would actually go on the packaging. So I could talk to you now about tone of voice, and these are our 6 pillars of tone of voice, and be all like, oh, you should always be genuine, and you should always be natural, and you should always be relevant. And these, I mean, this is our actual tone of voice guidelines, so we do actually refer back to these. I'm not being sarcastic. But if you'd like a copy of these, we're doing a new print run, so let me know. Basically, the gist of it is, when I was thinking of doing this presentation, and I was thinking about how do I explain all of these things, and what's that innocent feel, how do we distill that, how do we boil that down? I think it really is we use the language of the kitchen, not the language of the manufacturing facility. And then I was thinking a bit more, and I went to the loo in Fruit Towers, which are all also very, you're invited to come and visit us. We put it on all our packaging as well. You're all very free to come and have a tour. We have tour guides, that's what they do, come and see us. But I went to the loo in Fruit Towers, and in the loo, obviously is where you do all your best thinking. We have our values on the wall as well. And I'll come back to them because our values definitely make us do the things that we do. I obviously want everyone to know that we are a brand that lives its values, but it really does influence these kinds of decisions we make, and I'll come back to them. So, this is what Innocent looks like today. It's not just smoothies. It's not a teeny tiny company anymore. It's not just a little, back room of someone's house or a shed in a garden. It's a big company now, but we still want to make sure that we feel like we're accessible and we're small enough that we're still talking to people directly, and we feel like we're getting across our message to our drinkers in a sincere and relevant and authentic way. So we've got coconut water. We've got cold pressed juice, which is actually quite a sophisticated thing, and it doesn't always make sense for us to be too chummy and too kind of chatty when you're talking about a juice that costs £4 in Starbucks, you know what I mean? So we have to find ways that we can use that kind of our well-known tone of voice, but still be relevant to people who are spending £4. We've got Bubbles, which is also a lovely picnic drink. It's a fizzy drink, but it's just fruit juice and spring water. It's very natural, it's very lovely. We've got Smoothies with a Boost, our super smoothies. So we've got a massive big range of things that we need to talk to people in different ways, and different markets and different languages, because we've got, Swedish, and we've got French, and we've got Dutch, and we've got German, and we've got Finnish. I mean, this is Finnish. Headlines don't work in Finnish because they're like 17 letters in a word. But, and also, obviously, our sense of humours are so different. Like, what's really, really funny in France is really not funny here. And what we think is absolutely drop-dead hilarious, the Germans are like, that is so lame. So, I mean, that's the difficult thing now, is how do we translate that tone of voice and that humour and that fun and that irreverence into, loads of different markets for loads of different products. So, I mean, like I said, I don't have an answer for you, but we're working it out. And I think that the most important thing is making sure we've got the right people in the right places. So we have copywriters in every different market. We have the right people that we trust in the places to be our voice, to be the people who can say, okay, well, this is what people are finding funny, and this is what people are laughing at, and this is what people are discussing, and this is what's valid to talk about. I can't remember who it was, but I think it was one of the Apple executives said, I'd rather have a hole than an asshole. And that's about recruitment and making sure you get the right person. So we apply that logic to that kind of problem. So when I say things like, what's changed? So we still do these kinds of things. We do a lot of backpacks that are just silly, fun, irreverent. Obviously, our cartons are no longer cartons. Our smoothies are not in Tetra Pak anymore. They're now in lovely bottles. So we lose space. We lose that marketing space. It's cut down. It's shorter than it ever was. But we still want to tell those stories. We still want to have a bit of a poke at the marketing team and talk about very important research that is obviously not important at all. It's just about you and smoothies and the two coming together. And things about guinea pigs being liars because they're not from Guinea and they're not pigs, and things like that. So that's the kind of stuff we like to talk about. And we'll keep doing that. So what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? What does it mean? And we have to keep going back to our drinkers, and what our drinkers have told us time and time again, what they want. And that means going to, this is a wall that we have in Fruit Towers as well. That's about people who write in and say, oh, I loved this bit that I saw on this bottle, or I really love your smoothie. And, you know, lots of kids doing drawings of giant smoothies and them swimming in a smoothie. And we get, tapestries. Someone does a tapestry that's basically like our Turin shroud. It's from ages ago, and we'll never, ever lose it. So we get a lot of feedback. A lot of people write to us on Facebook, obviously, as well. And our social media team is just amazing. We have an incredible communities team who's responsible for some incredibly brilliant ideas that have gone out there in the world. And it's that kind of stuff that we have to keep responding to. And as long as we keep responding and keep, I think, chatting to people in a way that they haven't been chatted to before from a brand, then I think we'll be in a good place. So it's obviously a very noisy marketplace. There's a lot of things going on. And that's why we want to keep true to who we are and true to our voice. And that's why. Do you know who that is? Yes, yes. So I did this at a D&AD event for students, and nobody knew who that was. So I'm really glad you guys know. But yes, so obviously we're not trying to then think, okay, well, Vita Coco is really cool and hip, and they use Rihanna, and they've really got that whole coconut water vibe down, so maybe that's who we should be talking like. Or if we look at Naked and their smoothies, how they, they're all like kind of zen and holistic, and maybe that's how we should be talking about super smoothies. And looking at other brands, I think is and trying to be like them is so dangerous, because we've already got that wonderful capital of sounding different than anyone else does. So I think we have to keep being true to who we are, but making sure that we're tailoring that to the right audience. So when we are talking about cold pressed, maybe we do sound a bit more sophisticated, but we'll always have a bit of a nudge, wink, wink moment. So, like I said, coming back to the values, these are our values. I won't read them all to you, but there's three things that stand out to me. In Be Entrepreneurial, if you're 70% sure, go for it, which is great, because that is what our founders basically said to us about every project we do, everything that we ever think. If someone's kind of like, I don't know, if you're 70% sure, go for it. I'll come back to that as well. My favorite one, obviously, be responsible, don't be lame. That is in our values, don't be lame. And that comes from lots of different things, like don't leave a mess, don't be shitty to suppliers, don't be a nasty person in your workplace, don't be lame. And I think that that's obviously taken through in our marketing and how we speak to people as well. And then under commercial, be generous is just a massively important thing in everything that we do, in every creative thing that we create, to be generous with each other and to make sure that we're like putting good things into the world and not just going, that's shit, that's lame, I don't like that. We try and avoid that as much as possible in our own creative team. But one of the commercial things is keep the main thing the main thing. And at Innocent, you may have known that we had veg pots, but we got rid of veg pots because we wanted to focus on drinks. We wanted to focus on tasty, healthy drinks. That's what we do very, very well. People love the veg pots, and that business has now gone on to be something else, which is already very successful. But we wanted at Innocent to be known for tasty, healthy drinks. We want to be, first we were West London's biggest healthy drinks company, then we were London's, then we were the UK's, then we were Europe's. We are now Europe's biggest, tastiest healthy drinks company. So that's good. And soon we'll be the world, hopefully. But we wanted to keep the main thing. And that was focusing on drinks. And we try and do that when we're doing our creative as well, and when we're putting together ideas. Are we making sure, because it's very easy with this tone of voice to go off on a tangent and talk about, walruses and rabbits and how they fight sometimes, and if you were going to pit a donkey against a chicken, which one would win? And we do. We've done that kind of stuff on backpacks before. But making sure that we're always bringing it back to the fact that it's just fruit. It's just fruit. It's just pressed fruit in a bottle, and it's good for you, and that is it. And hoping we get that message across is the most important thing. So something like don't be lame. This is just a tiny little thing we did for when we send our boxes and boxes and boxes of smoothies and juices and whatever it might be to an Asda or to a Tesco. A lot of the times the guys who work there, who work in the Tesco's and are packing, get completely overlooked for any kind of like nice messaging. They don't get really lovely things from all these big brands. So we wanted to make sure that we gave them something really lovely, and we sent them, we sent them these gloves, which are fridge gloves to keep their hands toasty when they're obviously packing the fridges. And they had little like hashtag shelfies on them so they could take pictures of themselves with the shelves. And we just made sure that we sent them to them in a nice little package that had Innocent Guide to Gloves, which is just a bit of fun. Driving gloves, looking awfully dapper, my good man. Marigolds, just a bit of fun, so that when they got something to unwrap, it was just as magical as if you had bought a smoothie, and they got a little bit of a surprise and delight, just like a drinker would, because that's important to us too. This was Fruit Towers. So trying to find those moments in every single place. They did actually have, oh no. They did actually have a break-in after that, which was a bit sad. What are you going to do? But it's trying to find those little pieces of magic every way that you can. And that's what we try not to forget when we're so bogged down with all the briefs and the actual things that have to be done, not to forget the little pieces of magic. If you're 70% sure, go for it. This is something, obviously I didn't do this. This is our communities team. This is not from my brain at all, but it is sheer genius. I'm not so sure if you've seen this, but if you want to click on that. No, nope. So if you've heard of the story, it's the story of the fourth floor stapler. Has anyone heard of that? Yep. So I work on the fourth floor. You never find a fucking stapler. So they put a sign on the stapler that was on our creative table that said, fourth floor stapler, do not remove. And obviously that led to some shenanigans with people taking the stapler downstairs to the second floor and taking loads of photos with them, being like, I'm on the second floor, what are you going to do? And then it just got out of hand. No? And then the stapler got taken to Cambridge and there was a photo of that. And then the stapler got taken to like Barbados, and then the stapler got taken halfway around the world and underwater and like on scuba dives, and just ridiculous. So, and that just completely snowballed into this huge social media campaign, and people were like, where is the fourth floor stapler now? And when that was first happening, we were kind of like, well, it's got nothing to do with smoothies, should we be doing this? It's got, it's not telling people about fruit. But it was so much fun, and it got people talking, and it got people tweeting, and it got people on social media saying, oh, I really want to meet the fourth floor stapler. And people were coming to Fruit Towers to get their photos taken with the fourth floor stapler, which was just ridiculous. But this is how much it spread, and it was a lot of fun. So they were 70% sure, and they went for it, and it turned into a really big deal. I don't know if it shifted any smoothies, but it was still something fun to talk about. And then keeping the main thing, and I'll go back to these actual pillars of our tone of voice, and they are natural, engaging, and engaging means give someone a reason to read, obviously, reward them for taking the time to read your massive back of pack that you've spent ages writing. Make it fun, don't make it worthy. Intelligent, we don't underestimate our drinkers. I think they're all really smart. If they don't get something, it doesn't matter. Someone else will. Funny. Genuinely funny, but that's tricky as well. Everyone's funny is different. Just be sincerely funny if you can. Unexpected, try and have that little go left moment, like Pete was saying earlier, when you're building a gag and you think people are expecting you to finish a certain way, and you go left. And be concise, which obviously this talk isn't. Sorry about that. And that just applying that back all the time to the main thing, which is what we do and what we make. And smoothies made from fruit, they are refreshing and they taste really good, and these are the kinds of things we want people to remember when they're reading what we write. And this is just a tiny little story I'll tell you about the caps, like I said, with the bottoms of the bottles. We were told by the printing agency, or the bottling company, factory, whatever it was, that you could only say best before 22 July, you couldn't say anything else. And we were like, oh, can't we say enjoy by, because that's so much nicer, so much warmer, it's so much more innocent. They were like, no, absolutely not, can't do it, can't be done, industry standard, it's the law, can't change. And then we went to a factory And I think it was like the head of brand who just said, like, are you sure we can't do this? To like the owner of the factory. And he's like, yeah, no, it's fine. Totally fine. It's no problem. It's absolutely no problem at all. We'll put that on Enjoy Buy is fine. And there had just been this bureaucracy that everyone had just said no because everyone before had said no, and there was no one actually finding out if there was an actual reason. It was just until we asked the right person, and we pushed and we pushed and we pushed, and it is just a bit nicer to have Enjoy Buy, so we kept that, and we have that on everything now as well. And so, yeah, making sure that you apply that in everything you do, and we do try and then apply that logic, that thinking, that feeling to whether it's our actual office, so that's a little bit of homework, that's our office, our actual products, our actual advertising. We did a festival this year that was really nice about getting people to unplug from this crazy modern world we live in and just taking some time out in the woods to have a bit of fun, and this was just some fun that we did, letting people know when you need to unplug. Some promotional giveaways, you get loads of vouchers and loads of, oh, try this and try that, but if you get something that maybe is a bit more fun, you'll remember it. We've got our web news, which is really great, our newsletter. If you can sign up for it, please do. It's a lot of fun. We always try and find something funny to talk about in there and get a little bit more of us, our personality across. So we try and apply that feeling of conversing, of chatting, of being like, if I was going to write a silly email to my friend and try and explain what coconut water is, that's what I want to be saying to the drinkers as well. I want to be saying it in that same way. And that's the end.